Welcome. Well, here we are in the beautiful Valentine Auditorium on the campus of the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential. Normally, this room would be filled with parents from all over the world, and they come here literally to learn how to multiply their baby's intelligence. Today, this room is empty and quiet, and that's so we can answer your questions. So let's begin. Well, first we have a question from Mercedes in Mexico City. And she says, I'm interested in teaching my baby to read. What steps would you take to start? Well, as with anything, preparation is important. So we would certainly begin by either reading the book, How to Teach Your Baby to Read, or getting the DVD. And some people prefer to learn via reading. Other people are more comfortable listening. So the DVD covers the ground. But you need to have that preparation. The book or the DVD will coach you what to do and how to do it in great detail. So that's really the first step. That's how we would recommend getting started. You'll see that both the DVD and the book give you a clear pathway of what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3. By the way, on the book, the first thing, if you don't have the book, go to your library. Almost every library here in the United States has the book, and the book has been in hardback edition for 50 years. So there are many, many books available. If you can't find it in the library, you can certainly go to Amazon, and there you'll find it at many price levels. And of course, you can also get it from our own General Revolution Press, and that's great. It supports the work of the institutes. That's good too. But just so you know, you should be able to find it in your library. Well, this is Stefan from Moscow. I've just started a reading program, and now I want to add encyclopedic knowledge and mathematics. What tips would you give to me to do this? Well, first, is your reading program going well? Because you really don't want to go on to something new until you feel completely comfortable with what you're doing. So if the reading program is going very smoothly and you're happy, you're kind of itchy to get on to something else, then by all means, if you have a baby, I don't know the age of your child, if you have a tiny baby, then I think I would go to mathematics first and then to encyclopedic knowledge, because mathematics is really, our math program is really designed for babies. And your baby will never be any younger than he is right now. If you have a 4-year-old, then I would go to encyclopedic knowledge next and back to math after that. But don't move on to a new area until the one you're doing is going smoothly. Don't bite off more than you can chew. It's much better to do a modest program, whether it's reading or encyclopedic knowledge or math. It's much better to do a modest program consistently and happily with your child than it is to put too much on your plate, be all over the place, and then some days you do it and some days you don't. That really will end up kind of driving you crazy, and your child won't like it. So whatever you do, whether it's one part of our program, whether it's 2 or 3, really make the rule, if it's worth doing, do it every day. Do a little bit every day. That will be the real secret to success. Your child will gain ability, he'll gain power, and there's nothing that a child likes better than to feel more capable, more able, more powerful. That's where you really see the joy in learning. When the child says, I really can read, I know those words, they belong to me, this is my program. But that comes from consistency. Well, here's a question from Christine, and she's very excited to get started. And she has begun with a reading program. Her child is 20 months old, and she says, I really believe that this will help my son tremendously. I just think I'm not doing very well in reading his cues. I think the part that's the hardest for me is how to recognize the cue that says he's almost done so I can stop before he loses interest. Any tips on that? And this is an excellent question. I think this is the heart of the matter, why some mothers succeed and why some mothers don't succeed as well. Because the process of teaching the child, it's very easy for your child to learn. And in reading, as long as we make the print size big and we choose words that he really loves, it's a very easy program to do. But we have to be very sensitive to the child. We have to choose the right moment in the day. For most 20-month-old, that's going to be from the time he wakes up till the time he eats lunch. That's the golden time in the day, so that's the ideal time to be doing his reading program. After lunch, nap, downtime, and then maybe after 4 o'clock you do a little bit more. But timing is important for him. When mother goes to show the cards, with a 20-month-old, he's up on his feet, he can walk, he's beginning to run. So he has a lot on his agenda. He has a lot of things he's interested in the environment. So you can't be coming at him with a lot of cards. It's not about the cards. He will learn in tiny little snippets, tiny little sessions, many times a day. So maybe with your 20-month-old, if you feel you're losing his attention or you don't know those cues, first of all, decrease the length of the session. If you're showing him 10 cards, that's probably way too many. If you're showing him 5 and you're losing his attention before the end of the session, then don't show him 5 cards. It's too many. Show him 3 cards. If 3 is too many, go to 2. You want to find what's the right duration for him. If he's physically very active, then that session's going to have to be very short. And by the way, if you have a 20-month-old who's physically very active, then one of the things you might consider is shifting over to a physical program. Get the Fit Baby book or get the physical DVD that will tell you exactly what to be doing with the 20-month-old so that he's getting the physical opportunity that he needs. He's getting the stimulation there, and that's going to give him better attention and interest when you come back to that reading program. So the first piece of advice I'd give you is decrease the duration of your sessions. Make them shorter. The second thing I would say is when you're actually teaching him, pay attention to his face. Don't be so involved with the cards. Make sure on the back of the card that you've written the words so you know the next card you're about to show is his name. And that's the next one up, so that when you put that card there, all of your attention is on his face. Because if you put your attention on his face as you're teaching him, not on the cards, you are going to see, oh, he likes this word, this is his favorite, it's time to put these away, I'm losing his attention, they're gone. All of that is written on his face, but you have to have your attention on his face, not on the cards. Sometimes mothers make the mistake of putting the card here and reading it from the front. So then you have 2 students. Your child is a student and you're a student, but look, there's no teacher. So that's a simple technical mistake. Make sure you're behind the cards and you're watching your child's face all the time to see how he's reacting. Always stop before he wants you to stop. Always stop before he wants you to stop. Write in big print and put on your refrigerator, always stop before he wants me to stop. So that you see it every time you come into the kitchen, you have the frequency you need to remember, I've got to keep it short and sweet. That's the key. Here's a mom who asks a very important question. She said, she was having the same problem the earlier mother was having about attention. And I think for her baby is only 1 year old. This is a 12-month-old. So my first piece of advice for Rosalba is look at the physical program. Because a baby of 12 months, he's just gotten up on his feet. He's just beginning to balance. He's not safe on his feet. Really, this is the time to put attention on a physical program. And this is the time when you soft pedal your reading program. You soft pedal encyclopedic knowledge. You soft pedal math. The intellectual things have to take a back seat to a much bigger physical program. So I would, if I were you, I would get the physical book, Fit Baby, Smart Baby, Your Baby, or I'd get the physical DVD. And I think you'll find the minute you see that DVD or you read that book, you're going to recognize your child in that book. It gives you a very clear pathway of how to make the environment perfect for the 12-month-old. I'd put your attention on that. And as you do that physical program, you can just salt in a little teeny tiny bit of reading. So maybe he is rolling across the living room floor on his gym mats as part of his physical program, and when he gets to the other side, you show him one word. Maybe he's jumping off the bottom step of the steps with you making sure he has a safe landing, and he gets to see one word. Maybe you take him for a walk all around the house, and when he gets finished his circuit of walking around the house, you show him one word. This would be a good child to maybe label your house. So everything in the house is labeled, and then you just take a tour of the house. You carry him and walk around the house, touring and telling him what each of those labels are, and you come back in a week and change all those labels. The big trick with labeling is you have to change the labels. You can't leave them up there or they just become part of the wallpaper. So I think right now you have to soft pedal your reading, and really I would put attention on the physical program. That's where his greatest needs are right now. Now you ask a second question, and it's such a good question. It's a huge question. Mom asks, well, maybe if I switched from showing him words on cards to showing them on the iPad, that will get his attention. Well, we all know that the iPhone and the iPad, it gets our attention. It gets everybody's attention. The question is that a good thing for the baby, or is that a bad thing? We would submit to you, I love my iPhone. I love my iPad. I love my computer. These are wonderful, wonderful tools, spectacular tools. But in the end, if you're going to teach a 12-month-old baby, we strongly recommend you stay with big red words on poster board. And there are a number of reasons why we recommend this. First of all, an iPad is not a teacher. It's just an electronic machine. It will never replace your beaming face on the other side of those cards. The iPad has no sensitivity to whether your child likes it or doesn't like it, or whether it's time to stop or not time to stop. All of those things you're going to learn by being behind those cards, showing them to your child. And those are important things for you to learn. You want to get to know your child better, and you want your child to get to know you better. Every day, you're getting to know him better and better and better. You don't want the iPad to steal that from you. The second thing is the iPad is not big enough. The words will be shrunk. They won't be the size we really want them to be to begin with. And the third thing is the jury is still out whether that iPad is safe to use with a baby or not safe. By the way, the jury's out whether it's safe for you and I to use. But you and I have an advantage. I wasn't raised in a world of iPads and iPhones. So when I was a baby, I wasn't exposed to these things. But the jury is out. We're conducting right now, all over the world, an experiment with our children. And there are two groups. There are the children in the experimental group who spend their day with an iPhone right here or an iPad right here. Please note, when you see children with iPads or iPhones, they're not holding them here. They're right here. So we have the experimental group, and there are now, in all likelihood, millions of children in the experimental group who are being exposed day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year to these electronic devices. Then, in the control group, we have the kids who are still using cards and books the old-fashioned way. Now, we have 500 years of experience with ink on paper. And so far, the only danger we've ever found with a book with a child is if the book is not high enough level, it might be boring and waste the child's time. So the biggest danger to the kids in the control group is that the book may not be high level enough and might be wasting a child's time. In the experimental group, it's going to be probably years before we know whether this experiment was a good idea or a bad idea. We know that tiny children have much thinner skulls than you and I do. And what is protecting our brain from the radiation of these devices is the skull. And we have a much, much thicker skull than the tiny child. So this is one experiment that, if it were my child, I would want my child in the control group, not in the experimental group. Now, maybe in 20 years, someone will write to me and say, ho, 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 it turns out these devices were completely safe, and everybody was worried about nothing. Maybe that will happen. I hope that will happen, actually. I don't want 20 years from now to find that thousands and thousands of kids were harmed by innocent parents who just didn't know any better. That will be tragic. We spend all of our time here at the institutes trying to make the brains of children better. We don't want to endanger them. So I'm glad you asked the question. It's a very long answer, but it's a very important question. No, we would not use the iPad. We would not use the iPhone for a very young child. We don't think it's safe at all. Well, this mom also asked another question, which I thought was a very good one. She said that she had started her math program, and she was doing it consistently, but then life intervened, and she couldn't do it for several days. And she said, you know, if I miss days, and I'm sure for some mothers they might miss weeks, there are things that just cause disruptions. You know, mother has a baby, family moves house, grandmother gets ill. These can be major disruptions to your consistent program. When these occur, she asked, does she go back and start again from the beginning? Or does she just move on from the place she stopped? It's a very good question. Never go back and do over again what you've already done. This will drive your kid crazy. So if you had to put your program away, even for a month, move on exactly from where you left off. And you know, you don't have to worry about all those words you've retired that your child did 2 months ago, because in teaching your child to read, you're going to come back and use those words in couplets, in phrases, in books. So it's not as if those words drop off the face of the earth. They're going to come back. But the last thing your child wants is, if the program is stopped for a day or a week or a month, the last thing he wants is to go back and start all over again. This, from his viewpoint, disaster. Never do that. And by the way, sometimes it isn't grandmother is sick or you're moving house. Sometimes you just haven't made new materials. When you are out of materials, put your program away. Steal the time you need to make new words. But sometimes when mothers are behind and they haven't made new materials, they say, well, I'll just show the old words for a while. No, this will take your program apart at the seams. Your child will rebel. He won't want to see those words because he's seen them too many times. Well, this one is from Maria, from Rome. I've started to read the Institute's books, and would the How to Multiply Your Baby's Intelligence course still be helpful for me? Well, it is a very good question. We certainly recommend to read How to Teach Your Baby to Read, Smart Baby, Fit Baby, How to Multiply Your Baby's Intelligence, all of the great books, to read them. And once you've read them, you'll have a very clear idea of a wonderful program. We also have the DVDs on reading, on encyclopedic knowledge, on math, on physical growth. So that really brings a mother right into this room for lectures. And she sees demonstrations on those DVDs. So do you really need the How to Multiply course? Well, in one way, my instinct is to say, no. If you really read the books, if you really watch those DVDs, you have a complete program, because it's true. But another part of me remembers the thousands of people who have come to this room to take the course. And, we've been giving that course since 1978. It's literally been thousands and thousands of parents. Every parent, virtually, who has sat in this room has read those books. And many of them have watched all the DVDs. But at the end of the course, many of them say, I read all the books, I watched the DVDs, but there's something really special and really life-changing about sitting in this room with 100 other parents who are home doing the same thing with their child, meeting the staff who we've spent all of our lives doing this. So of course the week is unique, it's special. And if we had one wish for all of you, if we had one wish for everyone who's read How to Teach Your Baby to Read, it would be ultimately to be able to be in this room with us for a week, because it's wonderful. Well, I think we've answered all the questions we have. I hope that anyone who's watching this who has a question, I hope you'll write that question so that we have the opportunity the next time around to answer your question. Okay?